Hi, my name is Tammy Fiskus, and I am a seventh grade math teacher at Liberty Middle School in Madison City. The title of my project for this class is Cooking for a Crowd with Proportional Relationships. The reason why I chose this one is because when my students come to me in the fall in seventh grade math, this is going to be the very first unit that they are going to be studying proportional relationships. It doesn't matter if I am teaching Math 7 regular or if I'm teaching Accelerated Math 7. This is going to be their first unit. So I wanted to prepare a project that we can use in the fall. Before I begin, what I want to do is I want to take you to the website and kind of give you an overview of the project. This website is called Bulb, and you access it through bulbapp.com. And what this is a way for students to create online digital portfolios to showcase their work. I've already started the project, Cooking for a Crowd, so that I have one as an example for my students. Down here, once I click on the portfolio, I have 3 pages. There's going to be more, but right now I just have 3. Clicking on one of the pages, let me click on the determining needed quantity. You can see that it's customizable. Oops, sorry about that. You can see that it's customizable. The banner up here with the measuring cups and the measuring spoons, they don't have to have that. They can have any picture that they choose to put up there to highlight, to accentuate, to show the creative side and their personality regarding this particular project. Down in the page itself, you've noticed that I've uploaded a picture of my work. So some of the pages, they're going to be uploading pictures of their work. Some of them, they're going to be inserting Google Docs or Google Sheets, various different expectations on different pages. But overall, it's going to give me a good, well-rounded ability to assess their understanding of each of the particular objectives. Going back to my outline, let's go ahead and talk about the learning goals and the objectives. There's one learning goal. The students will use proportional relationships as they adapt a recipe for 50 people, digitally shop for ingredients, and make decisions based on the research and cost calculations. Students will use the Bulb website that I just showed you to create their digital portfolio, and they're going to be able to share that with their group mates as well as their teacher to gather feedback. In addition to that, they are also going to be using it as a platform for their presentation when they share the information to the class. The learning objectives specifically relate to the Alabama Course of Study, so specifically math-related objectives. The first one is students will create unit rates when one or both quantities are fractions. Secondly, students will use models to create proportional ratios and test for proportionality. Students will create tables and graphs comparing 2 quantities and determine if they are proportional. Students will identify the constant of proportionality and write an equation in the form of y is equal to k times x, where k is the constant of proportionality. And lastly, students will write and solve real-world problems using proportions. All right, so I need to look for evidence that they are understanding, that they are learning about the particular objectives. So I need to assess them to what degree they are at that particular objective. So I have listed several different ways several different key aspects that I'm going to be looking for. Regarding unit rates, I'm going to be looking for, can the students create unit rates by dividing the rate by the denominator so that the denominator is 1. So what I really mean by that is they're going to be given a unit rate, let's say $5 for a pack or for 3 packs of gum. And they're going to need to find out well, how much does it cost per pack? That's what they're going to have to do. And in order to do that, they're going to divide both the numerator and the denominator of the rate by the denominator. So in other words, 3. Students will compare those unit rates. So once they found those unit rates, they're going to compare those unit rates to decide on which product they're going to purchase for their dish. Now, they're not actually going to be purchasing these items, but they're going to simulate purchasing by going to Kroger.com. Next, proportionality. Students are going to use a model to determine how much the recipe needs to be increased to accommodate 50 people. Students are going to use the unit rate, in other words, the amount of the ingredient needed per one batch, to calculate how much of the ingredient is needed overall. And then students are going to test for the proportionality by using cross products to ensure accuracy. So they're going to check their work by using cross multiplication to see if their calculations are correct, so that way when they make 5 batches of the recipe, they can ensure the fact that it's going to taste exactly the same as if they were only making 1 batch. Tables and graphs. Students will use Google Sheets to create a table and a graph comparing the cost and the number of packages for each ingredient. And then students are going to explain why those tables and why those graphs show proportional relationship. So in other words, they're going to demonstrate their understanding of how to determine if a table shows proportional relationships, or how to determine if a graph is not showing proportional relationships. Constant of proportionality. Students will identify the constant of proportionality, in other words, the unit rate, from each table and write an equation, and also from the graph, and write an equation of the line in the form of y is equal to k times x. Again, k is the constant of proportionality. Lastly, writing and solving proportions. Students will write and solve proportions to determine the amount needed for each ingredient, as well as the cost per person. So in other words, they're going to go back to that your very first objective, and they're going to create a unit rate. Description of assessments. The students are going to be assessed through a rubric containing 4 levels: exemplary, accomplished, developing, and beginning. I chose those particular headlines or headings because of the fact that they are very positive and encouraging to the student. So if a student lands in the developing section for one of the objectives, that doesn't mean that they're doing bad. It just means that they've got room to grow. So it kind of gives them a starting point. This kind of gives them an idea of where they are now and what they need to do to bump up to the next level, or maybe even 2 levels. Each learning objective will be graded based on demonstrating mastery of the objective, application of the learning objective, and the ability to communicate the results, because so much of math is not just necessarily about getting the right answer. It's about being able to communicate how you got that answer so that others can pick up your work and say, oh, I understand. I know how to replicate this. Students must upload mathematical work for each objective to score beyond the beginning level. So like I said, they need to have that work to show it. Students will have an opportunity to revise and resubmit the project for a better grade. So once they actually get their grade, they will have an opportunity to revise that, and they can seek out help with me. They could seek out the help of their group mates, various different avenues for that, so that when they resubmit it, they can move up a level or 2 in each of the objectives. Okay, so let's go ahead and time out for a second, and let's go over to the rubric. Here is a rubric, and we're going to focus in mostly on the page that I showed you, proportional reasoning. There are, for each of the different levels, exemplary, accomplished, developing, beginning, there's a list of of expectations, and students need to meet those particular expectations to be considered accomplished or be considered developing or be considered exemplary. So they have to meet all of that criteria in order to be in that particular category. One of the things that I want to point out, again, I talked to you earlier about how important communication was. So on the rubric I have down here, at beginning level, no student can be above a beginning level if they do not show their work. So like I said, it's all about communication. They've got to be able to communicate it. If they show their work, then they are eligible to be in the developing or the accomplished or the exemplary categories. All right, last thing, description of content materials. So the bulb, obviously, that I've went over is one of the biggest components to this particular project. It's going to be the platform for which the students share what they know. So I've already gone over that. I'm going to include that example that I'm working on for the students to see so that they have a good idea of what is going to be expected of them. Once I've done this a year, then I will have student samples to show them as opposed to just mine. We also are adopting a new textbook this year called the Alabama Reveal Math, and the digital component on that is fantastic. That will provide lots of support with understanding the different skills that they need to do to successfully complete the project. It's got interactive online version of the textbook. It's got lesson practice. It's got video tutorials. It's got helpful hints. It's got games. It's got all kinds of things to appeal to them on every different level. Students are going to utilize Google Sheets and Google Docs when they're creating their tables and their graphs. The great thing about Google Docs or the Google platform with Bulb is that once I put something from Google onto Bulb, if I go back and edit that Google Doc, it automatically is showing on the Bulb. So that's fantastic. That just kind of eliminates one extra step going and re-uploading. All right. Last thing is, I know sometimes it takes several different methods and avenues for students to really understand the particular different concepts. So I've gone to YouTube and I found various different videos for each of those topics that the students can also visit to get kind of a different perspective, because sometimes hearing it slightly different will make a world of difference. Okay, please don't hesitate to send me some feedback on my outline. I have no problem with that. In fact, I welcome feedback so that I can learn from you guys as well. Catch you guys on the flip side.